Hey guys, it's Sarah here. Look, today we're just painting this little wee red sky scene that's in the middle of the week's paintings there. I think I talked about this in the last video, showed you at least that this video was coming up. Yeah, so as you know, I've recently been doing the more like blue sky skylines. So working on clouds and things, so doing things like this one and this one here, and I just thought, oh, let's go back and do a red sky. Haven't done one in a couple of weeks, so let's go and do that. Add that in. I am going to be going in and doing a whole heap of just working on stormy skies and adding in darker clouds and things to lighter skies. So if you're interested in seeing those kind of skies, I will be doing those in the next couple of weeks. Before we get into greens, I'm doing trees and things like that, so we'll get there. As you know, I do daily paintings. If you don't know, well, I do daily paintings, and it's just basically a way to get paint on canvas, improve your skills, get back into the swing of it. I can be a bit of a procrastinator with big paintings, and I have a whole heap floating around the studio that are really big and I've been working on for 10 years and I just don't finish them, whereas daily paintings just gets paint on canvas, and the improvement I've noticed over the last 6 months is amazing. And I'm hoping going back in another 6 months I'm going to look at the paintings I'm doing today and go, ew, why? That's kind of the plan. So with these skies, I use a light yellow and a dark yellow, as you can see on the middle of the palette there. And I also have like a darker red and a brighter red as well. I'm trying to see if I can get rid of that brighter red. I probably don't really need it because magenta and the yellows together will probably do what I need. And it just saves one extra color in the sky. But I do quite like that red mixed with that darker yellow. It makes a really nice peachy color. So we'll I can probably mix it with the magenta, but we'll get there. And then what I do with these skies is I don't like to just, block off the entire sky and make it really, really smooth. I start and sort of just add little bits of color in across the sky and just start nudging it in. I've got that slightly rounded head filbert brush in there, and I just use that just to, nudge in and around the colors and sort of blend them in gently at the edges of the areas. You can see them. It's just me doing that there, and sometimes you need just a slightly wet brush just to nudge that through, because I'm using the Atelier Interactives, which are an acrylic paint that are a little bit easier to reactivate with water than a normal acrylic. So once it's down on the canvas, normally kind of that's a bit it, but the Atelier Interactives, you've got a little bit of extra wiggle room with the slightly damp brush just to nudge that through. And the idea behind the sky was I wanted a very light, bright center to the center of the sky. Where is it? So in here, I wanted like a really bright sort of center in the sky there, and I wanted like a sky up the top which had some blue behind it still, with some of those sort of red wispy sort of clouds sort of just kind of going up over the top of that. So I did that by putting in the magenta with a little bit of that cobalt teal you can see on the top right hand corner of the canvas, palette, sorry, and sort of painted that in, and then added in a little bit of more magenta and red up the top there, and I sort of just brushed lightly over the top of it with a lighter red. And I think I do a little bit more of that later on as well. And I'm not bringing down, making sure I'm not bringing down any of that cobalt teal down into the lower part of the sky. It's a blue and yellow mix can make green, and I like using the cobalt actually in the skies. It is a greenier one. You do have to be a little bit careful with it, but I do like using it with the like ultramarine up the top and then the cobalt teal down the bottom. It does look quite nice, but you just have to be a little bit careful with any blue mixing with yellow that you don't end up with a bright green, grass green sky. Yeah. And careful, make sure your brush is clean when you're coming back down into the yellow, otherwise you'll end up dirtying it up, which is fine if that's what you want to do. And sometimes that's appropriate to have a slightly dull down yellow color in your sky. I guess the best way to make things pop out when they're bright is to have things against it that are dull. So it's the same with, you know, the clouds that are, you know, in the normal clouds in the sky. The clouds aren't always white. If you have some darker colors in the clouds and some darker grays or purples or blues or whatever it might be in your cloud, then the bits that you actually paint white are going to look a lot brighter. And it's the same with this, you know, so if you have some slightly more grayed out colors in your sky, then you're going to end up with your brightest, you know, brighter colors popping a little bit more. And what I'm doing here is I'm just fiddling about, nudging in those colors gently with that filbert brush, just to get those in the right spot and how I wanted it, and just trying to get that composition a little bit right and see exactly what I wanted to do. I'm a little bit disappointed in the, you know, like later on, that I didn't either do more or take out that little white bit of fluffy cloud that was in there. It's a daily painting. It took an hour. I think this whole thing was an hour 4 minutes to do this one. So you know, sometimes there's just things in the paintings that you just don't like, and that's the whole thing about daily paintings. Just got to get used to the fact that they're not perfect, they're not amazing. And yeah, there's me just going a little bit of like wispy, you know, colors over the top of the of that sky, just to sort of make it look a little bit, you know, clouds whisked over the top of it, over the, you know, the darker blue of the you know, the night sky, I guess, part of it. Yeah, so just getting used to the fact that it's not going to be perfect. And for me, that's a big thing, because I can be a little bit of a perfectionist for some things, or rather I don't like showing people things that aren't finished. It makes me very nervous, or, you know, I just don't like that. So it's just part of my therapy, just getting things on the canvas and getting it done right. And really, this, you can't, the only real principles to do with this is don't bring your blue down into your yellow and wiggle it around and nudge it around and try and create areas that are brighter and lighter and have different colors in them. And if you use a really big brush and just start scrubbing it through, you're going to end up with the colors kind of more blending a bit, which is why I use the filbert brush. You've just got to then be careful that you nudge those edges of the paint colors there to make sure that they don't blend all together too well. You want to keep those areas separate. And the reason I've painted the bottom of the painting is something I like to, particularly in daily paintings, is I need less coverage of the paints in the later stages of the painting when I go over the top of it with the city and the trees, because hang on, let me get this in the right spot. You can just see like little tiny little bits in here of the red all the way through, you know, through the painting. Even up into the city up in here, you can see those colors. And what it kind of does is you get your reflection colors sort of kind of in. And if you're very careful with that top layer and don't cover them up completely, you don't end up having to put them back in again. So having that sort of base color kind of shining through is, you know, the color of the light. Oh, see, there we are, putting on those clouds over the top of that sky, that little bit. And just wisping them up there. I could possibly have put like tiny little bits more of white into those had I wanted to. I didn't. Something to do maybe for another one. Yeah, where was I? Yeah, so putting those colors down in the bottom of the painting just, you know, saves a little bit of bother a little bit later on. And they're really quick to do, like to put in those colors down the bottom, you know, as you're going, it takes like 30 seconds, whereas maybe putting them in later on in the painting might take, you know, 10, 15, 20 minutes or so. And there we are. I've just drawn on a rough guideline of where I want the city buildings to go. And I have used a pencil, which I don't necessarily always suggest you use to put those on. Sometimes the pencil lead can sort of pop through back to the top of the surface. So yeah, just so you know, just to be a little bit careful. And what I'm doing here, as you can see, just popping in like a little base area of the trees. I just wanted to get the, you know, the shape of the top tree line where I wanted it, and I didn't get it in the right spot. And I've actually gone back shortly, and you'll see I've just I've changed that skyline a little bit by just popping in a little bit more yellow up over those top bits of trees. As you can see here, it's not quite the same shape in through this area in the painting as it is through here. I didn't like the shape it was making, so I changed it. And you can see just those little bits of the lights of the sky shining through the trees, and it kind of looks like either the lights coming in through from behind, or you can imagine, you know, a sunset like that does colour the you know, the leaves and things on the trees just that little bit sometimes, and it kind of looks a bit like that light sort of, you know, got in on top, if that makes sense. And there's me just fixing that up, because again, Atelier Interactives, if you've got a very, very clean brush, dunk it in the water, pat off the excess water, and then just nudge that paint down away from the area that you want it in. Sometimes you can just carefully remove that paint without making a muddy mess. You have to have a very clean brush, and every time you go back up to the top part where you're trying to remove the paint from, you've washed your brush and you've patted it dry, you know, like, so it's just lightly damp on a paper towel or something, and you can just push that paint back down. Yeah, I just didn't quite like the shape. I just wanted to add a little bit of extra you know, movement into the top of that tree line, just to create that sort of, I guess, little more focal point just in the middle there. I could say something wanky like hold the eye or something, I don't know. You know, I just thought it looked better. Okay, and then what I am doing, I'm mixing up a it looks like a reddy brown of some description in there, black, a little bit of the yellow ochre and a little bit of the red, just trying to get a light and a little bit of the medium in there as well, putting in thin layers for the building, basically just going in sort of areas that are slightly lighter and slightly darker, putting in a slightly thicker layer on the areas that are going to be darker and a slightly thinner area on the areas that are lighter. I don't know if I said that round the right way, but we'll see when I read back the video. And you can see the colour just sort of slightly shining through there from the sky, and kind of just looks like the sun's hitting, you know, the buildings a little bit. I haven't quite got that working right yet, but I like the idea of doing it that way. I mean, you can put it back on again over the top, you know, it's perfectly possible, but and probably a better way to do it. But again, daily paintings, I'm just sort of, you know, oh, I think my voice is still crappy from that cold. It's ridiculous. It's been like 4 weeks now, I think, since I had those yucky bugs and daycare. Honestly, like, the kids just bring home absolutely everything, you know, and they just wipe their noses on you, and it's like, oh, disgusting. And she picks up her dummy the other day and just shoves it in my mouth. I'm like, ew, gross. Yeah, anyway, I kind of like the way the buildings were sort of looking without putting in windows, and I kind of wish maybe I hadn't put the windows in. Every time I put windows in, it doesn't really, you know, I wasn't as happy with the, you know, with the windows as perhaps maybe leaving them out, but that's okay, we'll get there. It's all about working out how we're going to do these things, but it's just adding in those planes, so a dark plane and a lighter plane, a dark plane and a lighter plane, just to give the buildings that little bit of bit of form, I guess. And figuring out quite where I wanted them. As I said, I didn't really have, I had some semblance, I'll see if I can find it, of a reference photo. Maybe I'll put it up somewhere. But I wasn't going completely off that. I was sort of playing with that, but that's okay. Oh, I think the next one I'm doing after this is back into, actually no, the next one's a still life. Yeah, honestly, yeah, I think that's what it is. I'm doing just some little square still lifes of some makeup and things like that, so that's what's coming up next. I don't know why I've just done that in the middle of all the sky studies, but that's what I did the other night, so that's okay. Oh yeah, so you can see there, just putting in those sort of thin layers over the top. Had I had more time to get those lines a little bit straighter, yeah, that might have been a good thing, but I didn't. Having that little bit of the medium in the paint just sort of helps sort of glide that through a little bit as well. just trying out, see how we go with all of those things. Love to see what you guys are currently working on at the moment. So, you know, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you're doing. What's your favorite way of doing skies? And, you know, I still haven't quite figured out, you know, exactly where I want to be going with my painting at the moment. And that's, I think, totally fine. I'm playing with these daily paintings and, you know, just figuring out, do I like landscapes or do I like, you know, the still lifes, or, you know, I seem to be kind of liking skies, to be fair. Everything I've done that I've really liked has had dramatic skies in it, like this one. And yeah, I'm kind of liking the way they're coming out. And I've obviously made some relatively big improvements with that. Like, see, this is one of the first ones I did at paintings that I actually did since I came back. And as you can see, it's not very good. Nope. I kind of got a little bit, it kind of looks like I was trying to do, like, I don't know, smoke or something over the sky. Yeah, never looked right anyway. But, you know, we're making improvements and we're making progress, and I am happy with that. And to anyone who's not happy about that, you know, it's a journey from, you know, yourself rather than a you know, trying to paint like someone else or paint as good as, you know, someone else. And I think, you know, making progress and just painting, and, you know, if you're too scared to paint because you don't want it to fail, then, you know, I don't think that's a very good thing, and something I'm trying to get out of my head. Like, I don't want to try things because I don't want them not to work. But then sometimes when you've tried something and it hasn't worked, you know, there's no point flogging a dead horse to, you know, like, try and make it look perfect. Maybe just start again, you know, is a good idea as well. So, you know, you've got to find what's good for you when it comes to this sort of stuff, you know. And what I'm doing there is I'm just popping in some, obviously, little bits of lights and things on the windows, just up on the top of the buildings there, where a little bit more light will be catching, popping in those as well. You don't have to put lights in every single window. Sometimes they can be dark, obviously, and you can change the lights around as well, because not everyone has exactly the same color lights. And something you probably can't quite see in the video is I'm changing around, like, a brighter yellow and a darker yellow, and sometimes a slightly redder color, or, you know, a smaller amount, or and some of them I think I put a little bit more blue. If you can imagine, there's, you know, people watching TV or something and it's just got the blue lights from that kind of in the background. Yeah, and just slowly nudging in little bits of color and things in there. I kind of, as I said, I got to this point in the painting and I was like, oh, I kind of liked the skyline the way it was without putting the windows in. So I'm like, we'll keep going with it. There's been a few I've done like that I've just not been happy once I put the lights in. And I've been meaning to go back and try doing it in the reverse way. So actually putting all the light in on the planes and then going back and painting the building over the top of that. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, so rather than the windows kind of going in on top, it's the building that kind of goes in on top, a bit like the way it actually is. Like, the windows are kind of set back and then you're putting the building in, you know, over the top. I saw someone do that on a video a little while ago, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. I might give that a try. But need to actually go and give that a try. So we'll see. Maybe that's something for the future. That's the thing. I've just got so many ideas that I just want to get down on these, you know, these little paintings, and just trying to find, you know, like, time to get them all done. I'm like, oh gosh. But for the moment, as I said, I'm still working on skies. So I'm doing a few of the little still lifes. You know, let's see if I can find them while I'm busy painting with those. have to excuse dress. I'm actually not entirely sure I don't have the dress on back to front. I just got out the shower and I was like, threw it on. I was like, because I made it, and I didn't put a label in which way was back and which way was front, and they're very similar, and I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not entirely sure it's not around the wrong way. Anyway, so little daily paintings. So that's just one I did the other day with my lovely cobalt teal, and it's an earlier one, and just those. So just doing some little daily still life paintings, I guess, a bit like that. And then what I've just done down the bottom down there is I've just popped in little speckles of lights, you know, so like there's cars, there's street lights, there's, you know, signs, maybe there's some shops down the bottom down there at the moment. And now that those are in, I'm putting in trees that sort of partially cover a few of those things there, and also just putting in some black, sort of kind of to simulate that there's like a the tree line, and there is trees and then trees, so just putting in like that little sort of bit in the middle there, so it looks like there's 2 layers of trees. And just using, I think that would have been the black and the yellow there, just to make a green, and just using my very old, faithful, destroyed, very firm, like round hog bristle brush, just to pat those trees in. If I let that brush get too wet, it's useless, and I end up with an absolute muddy mess. So you need to kind of make sure it stays quite firm, and you dry it off, and don't leave it sitting in your water jar like I am inclined to do. Okay, and then just tapping in a little bit of the yellow, the same as is in the sky. It's a little bit of more like sunset lights rather than necessarily green of the trees, if that makes sense. Just popping in that. Maybe it was a little bit too much, I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know, it's probably not. Like once it dries, like because acrylics, you know, dry that little bit dark. Gosh, I hate this camera in this room in here. The acrylics dry that slightly bit darker than sometimes in oils, so that yellow does sort of dull down a little bit. So yeah, I'm just knocking it off a little bit there as well. And you can see in there that sort of that little black area kind of in the middle. It's sort of like that's 2 layers of trees. And I haven't completely gone over the lights and things from that little city area either. Just nudging it in. The good thing about that is anything that didn't really look good, you just dig a blob for a tree. But that's fine. Oh, damn hair. It's annoying. Yeah, and then just adding a little bit on the side there, some you know, little bits of the trees that are sticking up over the top of the skyline, hide that little bit of a mess that's in the middle there. Try and make it not look quite so tragic. Just alternate the colours through. Anyway, so I think that's pretty much coming up to the end of the painting. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate your support, and those of you that have managed to stay to the end of this little wee video. And I hope to see you in the next one, which, as I said, is probably going to be that little the still life one here, but we will see how we go. I still need to do the video for this one and this one, which isn't quite yet finished. This one's taken, both of these actually were much longer than our long daily paintings, so they're going to take that little bit extra of times. Anyway, so there we are. That's the finished painting. And again, it's just a couple of things in there that I think that perhaps next time I would do a little bit differently. But it's an hour-long daily painting. It got paint on the canvas, which was the whole point of the mission. And yeah, I think I probably really want to go and dry my hair. It's still wet. Not that you guys needed to know that, but whatever. Oh yeah, just adding a little bit extra of the darks and things in there as well. And that is the end of the painting. Yes, and I did leave that brush in the water, I think. Oh no, I didn't. Okay. Wow, that's unusual. Normally I leave that in there. So that's the finished painting. And I think I'm just about to show you the disgusting mess that is my studio. There's week. I cleaned it up. I have done a studio tour video about 2 weeks ago, and I cleaned up the studio with my daughter day before. But yeah, it's tragic by now, and so it's just mess everywhere. And yes, I do tend to paint with all the extra little bits of paintings flying around everywhere. I haven't yet spilt anything over the top of them, but I'm expecting that's probably going to happen at some point, and then I'm going to have like a no paintings on the table rule coming through. But anyway, all those little wee ones are just little cartoons I did for my daughter. She was like happy to see them. Anyway, thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.